Yeah. Red leather, yellow leather, red leather, yellow leather.
Fix it.
Salvador Cortez here with Eat a Deck Tech number 2, sitting down with Kyle Bartolome today. Explain to us what you've been running recently.
So, I've been on Grixis Control. I've really enjoyed playing Grixis as a variant in Modern over the past 5 years. I've been playing Delver, I've tried different control variants, even certain Reanimator variants, but I feel like Grixis Control right now is strong and it's a good percentage matchup against almost every deck in the field right now.
Okay, so you mentioned Delver before.
Yes.
What made you drop Delver or go to this variation?
So the problem with Delver is Lightning Bolt is really strong against it, and now that there's not only Lightning Bolt in the format, but Fatal Push has come around, more decks have options to a Bolt-like card. So you had options when I played, at least when I played Delver, I had sideboarding options to take out my Delvers against Bolts.
Correct.
And like you just go into a Grixis Control deck. Now with Fatal Push, it felt like I was boarding the Delvers out so much that I just decided to drop them completely and go into a more hard control variant. I get to play Cryptic Command again, which is one of my favorite Magic cards that has ever been printed. It's kind of powerful. I get to go up a little bit higher on the curve, and I get better, stronger win conditions, and it's more consistent.
Okay, now usually with these Grixis decks, the usual deck lists run Thought Scours to get Tasigur outs quickly.
Sure.
What ended up happening to make you go up to Ancestral Visions over the Thought Scours?
Well, so most of the decks actually ran 12 spells that say draw a card on them.
Sure.
They had Ancestral Vision, they had Serum Vision, they had Thought Scour. The thing that I was noticing with those decks is you were playing so many cards that said draw a card on it when really you just wanted a better card.
You rather draw your actual...
Correct. So instead of like, Thought Scour is great to get a turn 2 Tasigur. It's also very easy to get a turn 3 Tasigur in this deck. You go fetch land and you play Serum Visions turn 1 to set up your draw. You play another fetch land, and yeah, you have to tap out for your Tasigur on turn 3.
Correct.
But from turn 4, but as you can see in my deck, I run 4 Cryptic Commands, and I run 1 Countersquall and 2 Spell Snares, and that's really all the counter magic I've made. So you can go Tasigur turn 3, exile your whole graveyard, and then you go into Cryptic Command the following turn, and you've got this nice base setup. Ancestral Visions might come off later in the game, and you're kind of set up from there on out.
Sure, now we mentioned Tasigur as one of your creature types. We'll go over the rest of your creatures. So you have a Tasigur, which you're running 2 of.
Right.
We explained the utility in that.
Yep.
You're also running 2 Goblin Dark-Dwellers,
Okay.
a singleton of a Kalitas, which is great against creature decks. It helps you get wide.
Well, and my burn matchup in this deck is pretty awful. You have to really manage your fetching, and the problem with having to manage your fetching that much against burn is you start cutting yourself off of Cryptic Command mana because you need blue and red sometimes on turn 1, so you can have your Serum Visions, but you also have access to Bolt the Goblin Guide, and you're dealing so much damage to yourself that I needed a way to play catch up. And so Kalitas gives me a way to grind out, and it's a long-term plan against the burn deck versus just trying to stop 1 Lightning Bolt or 1 Lava Spike. And this is a way that I can try and play catch up.
It survives the bolts.
It survives bolts. They can't Searing Blaze it and get value off of it.
Correct.
So that's kind of the main reason why I ended up going the 1 Kalitas, because there's a lot of burn in our meta, and the matchup is pretty awful otherwise.
Okay, so we mentioned your creature so far. We didn't really touch on Snapcaster, but
It's kind of expected.
yes, it's expected of what it does. Ambush Vipering people.
Yes.
Now, let's move over to your removal.
Okay.
How you deal with creatures. Can you explain to me when you hold off your bolts to go to face, when you use them for actual removal, and how do you manage all your...
So I play this deck pretty conservatively. Arguably, I could say I almost play too conservatively. So a lot of it depends on the matchup. If I've got a hand with Lightning Bolts in hand and I see my opponent drop a turn 1 mine, that bolt's going immediately to their face. I know that there's the potential of maybe picking off a Karn if they try and exile one of my lands, but most Tron players, especially in our meta, are smart enough they're going to plus with Karn first, because if they minus first, they know that there's a good chance of a bolt going to it. So there's a lot of the matchups that you need to race them before they can get even more ahead of you.
Okay. And you mentioned Karn, so Dreadbore is a singleton.
Yes.
It helps you deal with creatures early and...
Karn, Lily, both Lilies are popping up a lot in our meta. Even Gideon comes in post-board against this deck because it can outvalue us. So there's a lot of reasons why I play Dreadbore. And so I obviously don't like the sorcery. Like, sometimes I'd rather have the 3rd Terminate so I can deal with it at instant speed and I can untap and do something else. But the advantage of it being able to deal with the planeswalkers is worth losing out on the instant speed part.
Okay, and worst case comes to worst, you Snapcaster Dreadbore, second planeswalker. Now, we went through your removal. You're also running the Black Bolt, which is Fatal Push.
Correct.
How have you been joining that as a new addition to Grixis build?
So, I'm still kind of iffy on it. Right now I'm doing a 2-2 split between Fatal Push and Terminate. Revolt, the part that has been frustrating with it is that I feel like I always have to keep a fetch land up in case they drop a 3-drop creature.
And you're running what looks like 9?
I run 9 fetch lands, which isn't the highest that I could run,
Okay.
but considering all the other lands that I kind of needed to squeeze in the deck, 9's about the most I can afford. So there are times when I still think Terminate might be better because it's always going to kill something.
Yes.
Fatal Push isn't always going to do that. But the reason why I keep them in is because I know that in the Modern community there's a lot of Death Shadow going on, but there isn't a whole lot here. So I need to always be prepared, which is why I'm keeping the pushes in, and it's nice to have a 1-mana answer to turn 1 whatever they play, but I'm still not sold on it.
Okay, fair enough. Now let's go over your Kolaghan's commands. Great value card. Lets you return
The
your
second best
Tasigurs.
command ever printed.
Sure.
I get to play the 2 best commands in this deck.
Yes,
which
Cryptic
feels really
Command and Kolaghan's Command are the best. Now, we'll touch on the sideboard utility with it later, but for now, what do you usually do with your Kolaghan's Command? Like, how do you gain the most value off of dealing with things or enforcements?
So, a lot of it is Snapcaster recursion. So if the game starts really coming to a grind, being able to, like, one of my favorite plays that I do is I flash in Snapcaster Mage and I target a Kolaghan's Command, and then I block something, let my Snapcaster die, and then if it's a 4 power or if it's a 4 toughness creature, you can K-command and deal 2 to the creature, and you get that Snapcaster that you just blocked with back. That's one easy way. Or being able to block and trade off with a creature, and then later on make them discard their card, and you get that Snapcaster back is really good. And also because of how popular Affinity is here, it's an immediate 2-for-1 almost all the time.
Ping a creature,
Yeah, you ping a
artifact.
creature, destroy the other one. You get to 2-for-1 them every time.
Okay. Now let's get to what the more blue control aspect of Grixis control. Your blue counter spells.
Okay.
Spell Snare, great early on.
Yep, great early
Helps.
on. You want to see it early. Sometimes picks off top deck Goyfs against the Jund and the Abzan matchups.
Countersquall, sorry.
So initially I was trying out 2 mana leaks, and the problem that I had when I was running with 2 mana leaks is they were great if you saw them early, kind of like with Spell Snare, but Spell Snare always is going to hit a 2-drop. Mana leak, if you're drawing it turn 7, is sometimes a dead card.
Correct.
And so Countersquall, while you're limiting your options to only the non-creature spells, the fact that it always will do something and that 2 loss of life that the opponent will take isn't nothing. It usually will make a big difference. It might put them into bolt range. It might at that late in the game. And then Cryptic Command.
The best command.
Right, the best command, as we've discussed. I mean, being able to, I use it a lot as a fog against Affinity when they've got their Edge Champion. If I just need a way to buy time until I draw
one more
into,
turn.
Get one more turn into trying to clear the way through to either beat down or just making sure I don't die to an Edge Champion equipped through Cranial Plating.
And we've all been there.
We've all been there.
Now, let's go to your spicy card singletons here.
Sure.
You're running a singleton of Mystical Teachings.
Yes.
And a singleton of Consume the Meek.
Yes.
Elaborate.
So all right, we'll start with Consume the Meek. So this was actually an idea I was given by a friend, and the reason why I run Consume the Meek is a main deck Wrath is good. All my creatures except for my Snapcasters survive to Consume
which
the
you can
Meek.
recur back with your
Which I-
Kolaghan's commands, like
Correct.
you stated.
And so being able to like land a Tasigur and then like feel comfortable playing Consume the Meek, and like I know my Tasigur is going to survive and their whole board is going to go away. It's a main deck way to deal with Edge Champion, which as we mentioned is a problem card.
Yes.
That card's a big problem. And the big thing is that because it's instant speed, it can hit man lands.
Yeah, that's a big important thing.
And so they'll go in with all their Blink Moth Nexuses, and they will activate them all up and try and swing, and I'll Consume the Meek, and now I've blown up maybe 2 of their lands along with all the creatures that they had on board.
And it instantly gets rid of a I feel like it's hard for you to deal with, like Lingering Souls.
Right.
It lets you, like, if they fully commit, you can Consume the Meek on the end step, you deal with that. Now,
Absolutely.
Before we hit the sideboard, what are decks you like to see and don't like to see with Grixis?
So, probably my favorite matchup to play against is Jund, because I can outvalue them usually, because they're doing 1-for-1s and and a lot of my cards are 2-for-1s. Kolaghan's Command, Cryptic Command, and like Snapcaster Mage being able to recur all of these spells. Ancestral Visions, because their Lily almost becomes irrelevant at that point.
You make up from what you discarded.
Abzan, I don't like to see as much, just because Lingering Souls is such a problem.
Yeah.
Lingering Souls is a really big clock that can happen really quickly. It's still not something I'm truly worried about, but they're definitely something I like to see less than I like to see the Jund decks. Burn is, like, even though I'm still running the Kalitas, because it's a 1-of, Burn is still kind of a problem. I need to kind of have the counterspell suite going early, but game 1's gonna be pretty difficult if I don't get like Bolt Snap Bolts going, and like I can land like a turn 3 Tasigur.
Sure.
And Tron can be a problem too, kind of like Tron likes to prey against these kind of fair mid-rangey decks.
Yeah.
So if I don't get like turn 3 Tasigur going, if I don't get the early stuff going, or if I don't have like the Countersquall immediately for their first card that they're jamming, I'm usually pretty screwed.
Sure. Let's go over your lands. We mentioned before you're on 9 fetch lands.
Mm-hmm.
You're at 5 basics. Yes. You have a few fetches here. Your Sulfur Falls.
Yep.
Amazing card. You don't take damage.
Nope.
The main lands I want to go through here are your Creeping Tar Pits.
Yes.
How have those been dealing with you? They can't block. They can block.
Yes, they can block.
They're
unblockable.
They're unblockable.
They can't
That's the
be
part.
blocked.
There you go.
Creeping Carpet's great. So it's a Lily killer. Like if they try to leave up Lingering Soul stuff, the ability to get through and deal with Lily so that I can safely resolve my Goblin Dark-Dwellers, I can safely resolve my Tasigur, and not have it worry about getting negged off is a really big deal. And it's also great when I'm starting to hit 8 lands, which is going to happen later on in the game, and I can go into the Creeping Tar Pit and feel comfortable leaving a Cryptic Command up. Yeah. I can go in with a Creeping Tar Pit knowing I've got Bolt and another removal spell for whatever they might be able to play.
And it's important to learn how to manage your mana with this.
Right.
Now, we mentioned Burn as a bad matchup.
Right.
We're going to go over to the sideboard. And now, let's start off with Burn. Mm-hmm. What's your game plan here with Burn on the sideboard?
So, Burn against the sideboard is pretty straightforward. I'm bringing in 2 Collective Brutalities and a Countersquall. And then I might bring in an Engineer Explosives, because a lot of them do play a lot of 1-drops. Monastery Spear, Goblin Dark-Dweller. Might be able, if they start getting the more creature route, it's a good way to keep up with that. And I'm going to take out cards like Consume the Meek and Mystical Teachings, because they're kind of slow. Maybe even shave a Cryptic Command or 2, because like we talked about, getting to triple blue without taking too much damage
is very difficult.
Is difficult to do.
And you still want to keep open some red for your bolts.
Right.
Sure. So, explain to us your sideboard on the other matchups.
Well, so we've got Fulminator Mages to deal with Tron, because you're hoping you get the turn 3 Fulminator, and then we bring in the Surgicals too, because you obviously want to live the dream of being able to, on the play, you Fulminator their thing, and then
you say goodbye.
And then you Surgical it, and now you know that they're also going to be playing fair, but their fair plan is playing 7 drops, and you're playing 3, 4, 5 drops.
Right. And we mentioned earlier, such utility, you get off the second best command, Kolaghan's Command.
Right.
You can ideally...
Yes, you can start recurring your Fulminator Mages. So the other card that I've been trying that's been helping with the Tron matchup, as well as the Affinity matchup, because Affinity is a very quick deck, and the Bant Eldrazi matchup, which is also something you can struggle with this deck, which is one of the reasons why I also like Terminate more than Fatal Push. Ceremonious Rejection, and the ability to nick off, it hits Thought-Knot Seer, it hits Etch Champion, and it hits Karn. Like, what more can you ask from for a card?
It's a 1 card that hits 3 decks.
Right, it hits 3 big cards in 3 decks. I mean, it hits most of the Bant Eldrazi deck and the Affinity deck, and the Tron deck, obviously. But, so that's a card that I've been having a lot of success with that I'm really enjoying on the sideboard right now.
Sounds good. Ob Nixilis, that's a high curve card, like you said. You want to be mana efficient. What made you go with the Ob Nixilis as a turn 5?
So, it's another way to kind of go over the top against these Abzan and these Jund decks where we're not dealing a whole lot of damage to each other quickly. So if I'm able to keep myself at a high enough life total, the ability to draw cards as well as destroy creatures and keep up with these decks, if not go over the top, is the main reason why I went with the Ob Nixilis.
Very good.
That was the most awkward ending ever.
That was awkward. Well, Kyle, thank you for coming out today.
Absolutely, it was my pleasure.
We'd also like to remind you that every Monday at the Game Hub, we have Modern for $5 at 6:30. We also have Modern at Collector Legion every Wednesday at 6:30 as well. Like what I say next.
So why don't you just do it again?
No, because we just have to add the thank you all for coming as like the two images go up. Bye! No, are you recording?
Yeah.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you all for stopping by. There.